Morgan Housel's bestseller book, The Psychology of Money, reveals a startling truth. Your financial success does not hinge on how intelligent you are, but rather on the behaviors, biases, and life experiences that shape every money decision you make. Housel's perspective offers a radically human approach to understanding wealth. Stories abound of people who seemed poised for financial stability, like a brilliant technology executive who earned an enormous salary, only to end up bankrupt. Meanwhile, a humble janitor working in small-town America quietly built a fortune through steady, persistent investing. Each real-life example underscores the same message: how we behave around money is what matters most.
Housel's thesis rests on a few simple but powerful observations. First, personal experiences define our views on money more than any chart or piece of data. Someone who grows up in poverty sees risk differently than someone from an affluent background. These diverging perspectives can explain why two people facing the same financial situation might make opposite choices. There is also the matter of chance. Bill Gates could attribute some of his early success to the rare luck of having access to a school computer in the late 1960s. Luck and risk, Housel argues, are siblings that quietly influence each person's financial path. Another recurring idea is knowing when enough is enough. Stories of otherwise successful individuals losing everything highlight the hazard of chasing ever bigger payoffs at the expense of stability. Social comparisons often push people to keep moving the goalposts of contentment. When they refuse to recognize what they already have, they risk reputations, careers, and relationships. Housel reminds us that managing money means respecting its boundaries and learning to separate genuine needs from fleeting desires.
In examining the steady growth of wealth, Housel likens the power of compounding to how ice ages form. Small accumulations lead to massive transformations over long stretches of time. Yet he cautions that the act of building wealth differs from the act of preserving it. Moments of exuberance can tempt anyone to overreach. Survival, both financial and emotional, depends on balancing optimism with what he calls a healthy paranoia. In other words, taking calculated risks can build fortunes, but reckless gambles can just as easily destroy them. Housel notes that real wealth is seldom what we see on the surface. The driver of a luxurious sports car might be drowning in debt, while the person with a modest lifestyle could be quietly amassing a hidden fortune. True wealth, by his definition, is the money we do not spend, set aside to compound and create long-term freedom. Such freedom grants the flexibility to choose meaningful work, step away from stressful demands, and enjoy time with loved ones. This is where Housel insists money's greatest benefit lies, far above the thrill of displaying fancy possessions.
The concept of saving appears time and again in The Psychology of Money. Housel views saving not only as a hedge against calamity, but also as the simplest route to preserving independence. Cutting expenses, he contends, is often easier than endlessly scaling up income. Moreover, when we spend less, we rely less on external validation and avoid the restless quest for admiration through outward status symbols. He stresses that what seems rational on paper can become unsustainable if it ignores our emotional capacity to endure risk. True financial strategies, in his view, should be both technically sound and psychologically comfortable. In a world that constantly attempts to forecast the next crash or boom, Housel reminds us that the future is always surprising, shaped by events no one can predict. This uncertainty demands that we keep some margin of safety, a cushion of resources to survive the unforeseeable. Likewise, people evolve over time, so long-range plans must adapt as goals shift. By acknowledging that our desires today may not be the same tomorrow, we build in enough flexibility to stay afloat if our vision of the future changes.
Housel also underscores the hazards of blindly copying others' strategies, especially when short-term speculators and long-term investors get tangled in the same market. Each individual has unique time horizons and motives, so what looks sensible to a day trader might be foolish to someone saving for retirement. Equally important is recognizing the way pessimistic narratives dominate headlines. Gloomy forecasts captivate audiences, yet they often ignore the long arc of human resilience and invention. According to Housel, our collective biases and fears can become self-fulfilling, but optimism has a way of quietly prevailing over the decades. Ultimately, the psychology of money distills to a set of guiding ideas. Remain humble about your ability to predict the future. Build margin for error into every plan. Focus on saving to preserve independence, and understand that personal finance is personal. Housel himself practices what he preaches. He lives well below his income, prioritizes financial freedom over maximum returns, and steers clear of complex or risky investments. This approach highlights a deeper purpose behind managing money. It is not only about accumulating funds, but about securing the liberty to shape our own lives.
The final takeaway is that financial well-being requires an honest look inward, acknowledging how our experiences, biases, and aspirations lead us to the decisions we make. When we manage our resources with that understanding, we open the door to a more secure, more fulfilling future, one in which the real rewards of wealth are measured in choices, not just numbers.